We want to be able to work from home and really free up our lives and get really high cash flow businesses. And the best ones, without a doubt, to this day are online businesses.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in.
All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. I'm your host, Jeremy DYER, and I have an amazing guest with me here again today, Matt RAAD. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Jeremy. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chop it up with you. Before we get started, I'm going to give my listening audience a little bit of a background on yourself, and then we'll dive in. Matt has defied convention, all right, and achieved financial freedom through a unique path. Starting with nothing, he built a high cash flow portfolio by buying and selling businesses. Today, he is a recognized authority in website investments using digital assets to generate wealth. Matt, before we got started on the show, I kind of explained, I've never had somebody on the podcast with this type of a background before. Most people that join this podcast as guests are really joining to talk about multifamily, value add real estate investments. So really excited to give my listening audience maybe a different spin on a similar investing strategy, but through the buying and selling of businesses and websites. So with that said, would love to hear a little bit more about, your background, where you're from, your journey, what you're focused on today, et cetera.
Yeah, well, and thanks for having me on, Jeremy. And you're right, it is quite unique. It's not just me, my wife and I, we're business partners. I think one of the things, like a lot of your listeners, we're always fascinated by passive income and also freedom, in particular financial freedom. But we both grew up in the country, and when we met at uni, we were studying zoology, which sounds really weird. But we both realized we want to live back in the country. So we needed to find a way to, live in the country. And also I wanted financial freedom, probably like a lot of your listeners. And we started, exploring this idea of business. And we realized business is the way to do it because it gives us so much options. Business can create incredible wealth. You look at some of the wealthiest people on the planet. So we very quickly got into buying and selling businesses. We bought a small manufacturing business and we built that up over time. We were able to, that was kind of our proof of concept business, that one. And we got that so streamlined that we only had to work 6 months a year. And out of that, we decided to diversify and buy other businesses. And so that's led us through this path to where we are today, where we're a big believer in diversification. We don't just buy one business, we have multiple businesses. We're a little bit unique in that way too. We're full-on entrepreneurs. We just love anything to do with business. We've always hung around very, very successful high net worth or ultra high net worth business owners. We've bought and sold businesses for them personally. And to this day, that's what we do. But then, Jeremy, the big changeover point for us, and this is the bit where your listeners want to perk your ears up, particularly for a real estate investor. When our kids came along, we were full-on entrepreneurs and we were always buying some bricks and mortar businesses, and we realized we want to be able to work from home and have the freedom and really free up our lives and get really high cash flow businesses. And the best ones, without a doubt, to this day are online businesses. And that's when everything changed for us in a major way. And it was when we had our kids. So Liz wanted to, be an engaged mum, but she also wanted to keep involved in business. So it was perfect. You could literally work at home in your pajamas and make lots of money. And you know what it did for us? It gave us an instant in to America. So no borders, no barriers, because we're located in Australia and we're used to exporting, and it's really tough gig for physical products. So we just saw the light, and basically we moved into these businesses that have no physical product, and we just sell electrons. That's it. It's effortless compared to what we used to do. Now, there's more to it than that, obviously, but in essence, compared to traditional bricks and mortar businesses, we absolutely love online businesses, and that's why we are where we are today.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to chopping that up with you a little bit more. But I also really appreciate the fact that you kind of explained to us, really what your definition of financial freedom or financial independence is, right?
Yep.
And for a lot of people, they think, well, that's, money in a bank account. Well, money in a bank account is just a tool, right? It's where you put that investment that it can become, life transformative. And for most people, really at the end of the day, they're not necessarily after more money in a bank account. They're really after more time to spend with the people that they want to spend it with, on the occupation, that they want to pursue, right? It's really about, getting back more of that time to be able to make those decisions that you want to make versus, being under the control, so to speak, of a corporate entity, choosing which, direction, you happen to take your life in. So I really appreciate you highlighting that for us. I really want to now unpack, this concept, we'll call it, of maybe, value add online website investing, right?
Yep.
I'm familiar with value add, call it self-storage, multifamily, brick and mortar retail. But now let's talk specifically about what you're focused on today in the online website investing space.
Yeah, well, so we get asked to speak at lots of real estate real estate conferences and things here in Australia about what we do, because we create really high cash flow, but through a very similar process to real estate investors. So we're not real estate investors. It's not our thing. We've done a little bit of it. It's always been business. But we basically buy online businesses for the right price, and then we renovate them just like you would renovate a house, and we keep them for the cash flow, and we try and up the rents, basically. So, and literally what we try and teach people is that online businesses now are pretty much the equivalent of physical real estate. It's just that they're virtual. They're actual assets. So not only are we getting cash flow, but they're not just online brochures anymore or anything like that. These are actual assets that can be bought and sold and renovated, fixed up. And so the trick is to buy low and renovate it and sell high. And just like with real estate, it's exactly the same process. And we try and keep it as simple as possible. We don't want really complex websites. We do no e-commerce, no physical inventory whatsoever, and no staff.
So my listening audience might be somewhat familiar with the fact that on the real estate side, what particular asset class are we talking about, right? It could be retail, flex office, multifamily, self-storage, et cetera, right? So they're familiar with that because there's a brick and mortar, business with some type of a value add business plan, or maybe it's ground up development. But when it comes to websites and acquiring them, what types of sites, do you typically buy? And then talk to us a little bit more about how you produce the value to the investors.
Okay, so there's lots of kinds of websites you can buy out there, and it's just enormous. Most people think of e-commerce, like I mentioned, like Amazon sites that you've got to buy products and sort out on Amazon the listing, and you've got to have it in a third-party logistics warehouse somewhere. We do none of that. We just go straight for content sites. They're informational style websites, and literally they just have ads on them. So, when you go on, you can pick any niche on the planet. So you and I are into outdoors stuff, right? So we might look up camping, like tents, or hiking gear reviews. When we're on there, there might be an ad for a tent. And if we click on it, I get paid if I own the website. Or even better, if there's an affiliate link to buy that tent that goes over to Amazon, you're cookied, and I get a commission if someone buys that product off Amazon. And it's a really, really simple business model. Obviously, the devil's in the detail. Like there's a lot to learn this. This is a digital skill, but in essence, that is the business model. It is literally that simple in terms of the business model. And now we can go down a rabbit hole. You can go more complex than that as well, but keeping it very simple, that's probably the best kind. And actually, Jeremy, can I give an example maybe that helps, that's relevant for your audience? We have awesome couple, father and son team in America. They are like your typical audience. They've made significant wealth through commercial real estate in America. And they're used to getting, what did he say to me? 8% on commercial, would that be right? And he rents out commercial properties. When he did our course, he has the ability to buy a bit of money. I don't recommend you do this if you're a beginner. He bought a website that was making $300,000 a year, for $1 million. Okay, so 300 grand cost him $1 million, and literally it's about pets. That's it. It's about pets, and it's just got ads on it. So when people click on the ad, he gets paid a couple of dollars. Now, it doesn't sound much, but times that by hundreds of thousands of visitors every month, he earns 300 grand. So he was blown away by that. But what we did was he renovated it. It was a very long established website. The previous owner was a lovely guy. He'd built it up himself. He loves pets. Okay, he's really passionate about pets. And my guy that bought it knows nothing about pets. It was just that it's a really good deal. But the renovation, because the older gentleman had owned it, 300 grand a year for not doing much, that's pretty sweet ticket, right? So when my guys came along, the father and son team, they went, no, let's renovate this thing. And you want to know, one of the main renovations they did was change the monetization. They went to what's called an ad network, and they got the ad network to help them optimize those ads. It literally doubled within the first 6 months to $600,000 net. That's net profit off $1 million buy. And, that therefore increases the valuation to around 2.5 mil because they're sold on a 3 times multiple. So straight away, he's not only doubled the income, but, well, not straight away, it took 6 months, but basically you've got to think of there's an asset value. This is what I want listeners to realize. It's not just everyone focuses on their cash flow, which is fantastic, 600 grand a year, but the asset value went from $1 million to about $2.5 million within 6 months. Now that is mind blowing. That's not a typical result, all that sort of stuff, but that's the sort of thing we're looking to do. And the good news is, if you're listening to this, what we suggest is you don't do it with $1 million asset. You can buy these websites, Jeremy, for like $5,000. You can learn all this. It's the same process, exactly the same process on a $5,000 website. The renovation that we get you to do, that's the same process that you do on $1 million website, like those bigger ones. So for us, that's the game changer here. Whereas with bricks and mortar businesses, you can't get a decent bricks and mortar business for under $100,000 or under 500,000 really. Whereas websites, they're dime a dozen. You can buy really good websites easily for under $5,000.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you explaining that, Matt, especially also how the end product trades at a multiple, right, of operating income. I appreciate your explanation there. I did also want to not assume that our listening audience understands how it is that you produce value through this value add strategy as it relates to utilizing SEO optimization. So can you explain more about what it means when you talk about, optimizing these websites through an SEO strategy?
Yep. So now that one, there is more to it. So the example I just explained was we optimize that one through fixing up the monetization, so getting better ads and affiliate offers on the website. That's really, really easy to do, particularly with bigger sites with lots of traffic. When you buy these smaller sites, there's often a lot of opportunity to renovate them through what you call, Jeremy, SEO, which is search engine optimization. Or these days, it's not even so much because there's been big changes in the Google algorithm. It's about we focus on driving traffic through a variety of means. And so what we do is basically it's a content-driven strategy. So the good thing is you can outsource all this. You can get, there's AI these days that help us, but we need to be a little bit careful of AI because people want real content. But basically what we do is we outsource articles. So say with that pet site, actually, there's another example. Got fantastic clients of ours, Nathan and Alexa, they're laptop lifestylers, young couple. They bought a gardening site for $400. Sounds next to nothing, right? And they realized from an SEO, what you're talking about from a renovation point of view, this is a long established website, had quite a bit of traffic to it, but they realized they could fix up, like what Jeremy's saying, the SEO, the search engine optimization, by putting on better content. Now, they're not gardeners. They live on a laptop in Thailand or whatever, but they just hired staff off a website called Upwork, so upwork.com. You can get writers. They put together a little team, just 2 writers, and they do the keyword research. Nathan and Alexa do the keyword research. That thing now makes them about $4,000 a month net. So that cost them $400. And what they've done is they've just consistently added really good content around gardening. So what their skill is, they do a lot of research about the gardening niche, and then they just put on really good content onto this site. They're not gardeners. They hired the team. They're actually pretty keen on gardening now, though, Jeremy, because it's making them really good money, this site. They've actually bought another gardening site as well because they like the niche. But this is, you can see this strategy revolves around these big classic evergreen niches as well, like, pets, gardening, anything to do with sport or camping or outdoors or learning how to play guitar. All these passion niches are where the really good renovation opportunities are, because literally the renovation is you just build on the base that comes with the website. That's the beauty of buying an existing website. You build on that base with new content. People find it in the search engines, they come to the website, they click on an ad, and you make money. And so that little $400 website, it's one of our really cool success stories of one of our clients is, that 400 buy, now they've had to spend money to get to this point, but it's making them $4,000 a month. And that's pretty cool. That's semi-passive. So that they're not gardeners, they don't work on it every day, they work on it, every couple of months. That's a pretty cool, for a young couple, traveling around Thailand, that's pretty good money. And they own 5 other websites, or more, like they own a portfolio of those. So you only need to own, extrapolate that out. You own 3 or 4 of those, it's a pretty good income.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a specific, maybe a due diligence process or an underwriting, process that you guys go through when evaluating websites?
Yeah, my favorite question. It's taken us 30 years to sort that out. So there's a lot to this. And I know, please don't think if you're listening to this is just a simple walk in the park or anything like that. Like Jeremy's just said, there is a lot to learn here. Just like for all of you that do, real estate, and particularly commercial real estate, we've got some friends that have done really well in commercial real estate. The reality is, you've got to do a lot of due diligence, and particularly even more so when it comes to buying businesses. And with websites, though, the good thing is we can teach beginners how to do it because everything's tracked online. I know some people don't like that, but we love it because it makes it easier to do due diligence when you know what you're doing. So we look mainly at profit and traffic. That's the 2 main things that we're verifying here. Before we buy any website, and luckily all that's tracked. It's you still need to be aware of what you're getting into, and there is a process that we go through. How many hours do we have, Jeremy? I could talk about that for days. That's my favorite topic. But my number one bit of advice, so if you're interested in this stuff and you want to get out there and have a go at it, start small. Like just buy a small little site under $500 or under $1,000 and practice it, and just be prepared. Doesn't matter what happens. If you can't afford $1,000, you shouldn't be doing this anyway. You shouldn't be buying and selling businesses. But that's how we get people to start practicing their due diligence on small, simple sites, because it's a lot safer. They can't make mistakes.
Now, I know that there's tax advantages, when investing in brick and mortar businesses and in commercial real estate. Are there any tax advantages associated with being a passive real estate investor in websites?
Good question. Not really. Like this is going to sound weird, but it's the opposite. There's such high cash flows. There are no write-offs whatsoever. So the most common feedback we get, we noticed this many years ago from our own accountant, and then all our successful clients say the same. Their accountants look at their figures and go, we haven't seen anything like this before. You got 80% margins here, profit margins on some of these sites. There's no write-offs or anything because they're literally they're not fully passive or anything like that, but there's not much expenses with websites. The good thing with websites is they're very high cash flow, but they're very easy to transfer into other entities. That's all I'll say. You need to speak to your accountant about it and whatever, but they're really, like, literally, when you know what you're doing, you can transfer a website. There's two parts of a website. There's the domain name, and then there's the files that create the look of the website, the stuff that you see on it. That domain name can be transferred in less than 5 minutes. You just transfer it out. So you can move it into a different company structure or a different name if you have tax reasons or asset protection reasons. So other than that, though, it's the usual thing. They're treated as a business. They're very high cash flow. It's a little bit different to property. You don't get the same deductions like you do in property.
Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose there's really nothing to depreciate when you don't really have, anything physical, whether it's equipment or a building, right? For example. So what are, Matt, what are some common mistakes that you have seen, people making when they first start investing in websites, and how can they avoid making those same mistakes?
Not learning how to do it, not learning the technical skills. There is digital skills that you need, and you've got to take the time. And the biggest mistakes I see people make is not doing full due diligence. They see these listings. So there's lots of places where you can buy websites these days, and they look amazing. Like you're on, say, flipper.com right now. There are over 300 websites listed that are claiming to make more than $10,000 a month net. Now, if you're a beginner, you would not buy those because you don't know what you're going to do. Because the biggest mistake is they'll be legitimate, that they will be making $10,000 a month net, but you buy that and you've never run an online business before, it's not going to end well. You don't know how to run it properly, so you need to have a team in place and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's probably the two main things: is not being prepared skill-wise to run these things. And then the other main one is not doing full due diligence. Always, I see beginners too often they're blinded by the amazing opportunity. It looks amazing, and they just believe, they believe the good word of the seller, and it's always good from a seller. So that's the one thing I learned, through buying and selling business. Always do your due diligence. There's always skeletons in the closet somewhere, and you've got to understand what you're getting into. Sometimes those skeletons are your opportunity, though.
That's right. Now, this may be a bit of a commercial, Matt, but if I'm an investor that is interested in investing in online businesses, where would be one or two of the best places that I could go to learn more?
Of course, ebusinessinstitute.com.au, which is our company here in Australia. We have a lot of American clients. So what we teach is most of our websites are based in America. But what we specialize in, if you're listening to this, is total beginners getting online. Most of our clients are real estate investors. They're, cash flow poor, asset rich. And so they love coming to us because we teach them part-time how to do this safely by buying smaller sites first. And we just have a process, and we go through, and we also teach how to do due diligence and things like that. So we've been doing this for many years, and we love it. So that's our specialty, teaching beginners or people wanting to get out of the rat race or build alternative assets to real estate. That's what we're kind of famous for, teaching those kind of people.
Absolutely. Well, what's next for Matt RAAD? What's your, what's on your target list for this year, bucket list, as we kind of wrap up 2024 and beyond?
I don't know. Do I say this? I have a belief that we're going to see some volatility in the economy somewhere. If you're a betting man, we've had this bull run since 2008 for 15 odd years or whatever. And we're prepared. We're getting ready. We made a lot of money in the 2008 recession because people panic sell all kinds of assets, and particularly for us, it was websites, of course. And we're getting ready for that again. So we are actively. We're really excited. We're telling our whole community. It could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity again where people will sell perfectly good assets. And in real estate, if you're in real estate, I'm sure it'll happen in real estate as well and bricks and mortar businesses. But for us, it's online businesses. So we're really excited about the marketplace and getting some really good buys coming up somewhere, hopefully in the next few years. Who knows? I mean, who says hopefully there's a recession? Sorry, that sounds really bad. But I'm not talking a recession. I'm talking just volatility. You know how that things seem to get a bit more volatile these days. And when things suddenly drop, you want to be prepared. And that's what we're about, is getting prepped for that.
Yeah, absolutely. My next kind of question is, I'd just love to maybe leave our listening audience with maybe one or two different ways that they can, connect with you directly to learn more about what you're up to.
They can, what's a pretty cool thing if you've been listening to this is just jump on our, look up Matt RAAD and look up the interviews that we do with our clients. And so you can learn a bit from that. So you can go to our podcast, which is digitalinvestors.com, Digital Investors, or ebusinessinstitute.com.au. You can just search for my name and you'll find me, or you can join me on LinkedIn.
That's great. Well, we'll definitely put those links in the show notes for this episode. Matt, this has been an excellent conversation. Really appreciate the tremendous value that you brought to our listening audience.
Thanks for having me on, Jeremy. Awesome.
Absolutely. And Freedom Point podcast listeners, thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.